It's map number 1. We're going to be on to Pride of Alteris, of course. I'm TitanOnFire. This is from the DreamHack Masters Winter Finals, which did just conclude. Such a great tournament. So much to talk about there. But for now, we are going to have this quarterfinal match. It's going to be a good one, because as we have here in the bottom right-hand corner, it's Scarlett. And the top left, he is best. He is Zest. Now, Scarlett has had quite the run in the season finals up to this point. And we'll get talking about Zest very, very shortly here, but Scarlett is kind of the big deal right now, because Scarlett had one of the hardest groups, I think, coming into this season finals, had one of the hardest groups with both Cure and Trap. And that's not an easy feat, to try and make it out of a group with both Cure and Trap. She 2-0'd Cure, which is absolutely incredible, being able to get a 2-0 against the GSL champion. And Cure, because Cure has really good, really solid DVZ, but still Scarlett managed to take it. And then she advanced it first. She beat Trap, who a lot of people consider to be the best Protoss in the world, and obviously that's very, I mean, he is the most accomplished Protoss currently in the world. And so Scarlett's had quite the road to get here. Now, we are seeing already some cheeky shenanigans, and this is kind of the Scarlett style that we love to see. As the gold base has gone down, Zest has scouted it out with that probe and is going to be able to see that, in fact, Scarlett is getting the gold. And we'll see what this is for. I have seen Zergs in the past use this gold base to get a very, very quick Queen attack on the third base of the Protoss if they are going for Stargate units, which is, of course, something that Zest really likes to do. Zest, in this matchup, has been just, it's almost always for him, at the very least, a single Stargate, as most Protosses are doing. But Zest will even go up to 2 Stargates in 90% of his games, so we'll see what this gold base is used for. If it is going to be that very fast Queen Ling attack that we've seen players like Raynor do, it actually hits even faster than when Raynor did it. Raynor, I believe, in that build, hit at around 4 minutes, 30 seconds or so. This can hit around 4 minutes with the gold base economy, so we'll see if that's going to be the plan for Scarlett. As so far, Zest, of course, is getting that Stargate up in the main base. Now, Pride of Alteris is a very, very large map. In fact, I believe it's actually a map that has been vetoed quite a bit up until this point, but we are seeing it now. And the reason why you do see it vetoed is there's so many attack paths. And it's a map that, again, with this full gold base, it does have all 8 mineral patches. You know, there's a lot of stuff that can go on here. A lot of pros aren't comfortable on it. So we'll see if a Queen attack is going to be kind of in the dockets here for Scarlett. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it at least once this series, again, knowing just how Zest likes to play. But as of right now, there is no real inclination from Zest to try and punish this gold base relatively quickly. Now, some Protosses you will see, they, you know, try and just completely switch gears into a 2 to 3 base timing attack to try and punish it. Zest, that's not the case. Zest, completely confident in his macro, and that is fair. I think Zest has had some very interesting builds, and his macro in general has gotten a lot better, but still is not on par with a player like Trap. And so that does make me worried, because again, Scarlett did beat Trap in some very just standard Stargate, you know, openers. From Trap. She managed to beat them. Now we do already have the Spore Crawler on the way. This gold base, it has been fully saturated. Queens and Lings just going around to defend, and for Scarlett, this is already a great start. Again, you get up the gold base unperturbed. There's really nothing that Zest can do. He is patrolling around that Void Ray to try and see if he can, you know, catch any units that are coming out from the ramp. Is going to go, or Scarlett is going to go across the map and try and see if she can get a cancel on that pylon. Ooh, on the third. Zerg gets low. Void Ray poking on in. Zergling's actually still causing quite a ruckus here at the third base. Do manage to get the pylon, and then they will go on out. That will supply block Zest for quite a bit here, actually, as that second Stargate is going up. Now, luckily for Zest, that pylon should finish right around the time that the Stargate does, so he's not going to be massively supply blocked for when he wants to start double pumping out his Void Rays, but it is a bit annoying. It's not going to be as easy for Zest now to get back into this game. And actually, Zest hasn't added on another pylon. He's going to have to wait for the third base to finish up. It should time out well enough, though, that with the +1 air attacks, and now the third finishing, Zest should immediately be able to start on to those Void Rays, but it's just, again, it's a little bit delayed there, as actually not even Void Rays yet. Zest adding on a Fleet Beacon and a third Stargate. Now, again, Pride of Alteris, it's a large map. This is, you can afford to do this as, ooh, the Shade's on in. 2 drones gonna go down. It's not entirely worthwhile. You usually want to get more drones than you send in Adepts, so 3 to 4 is usually what's really, really worth it for those Adepts. And Scarlett has the Roach Warren finishing up, has a lot of Queens on the map as the Stasis Ward should go down. Oh my, that's so many drones. That's massive for Zest to slow down Scarlett here. And right now, this game, it's in a very, very strange state for Zest, who, again, he's getting up into 3 gates. Will be adding on, I imagine, 3 Void Rays at a time. No! Tempests, okay. Now that is interesting, 3 Tempests at a time. And of course, Tempests, they are quite good at defending against the Queen Walks. They have the extended range, they outrange the Queens, and so, you know, in the longer drawn out fights, the Tempests are actually better than the Void Rays at defending this third base. Oh, this is very interesting from Zest, and we'll see how it does. Tectonic Destabilizers as well on the way, but Scarlett, what is she gearing up toward? Well, she's still only on 3 bases. A 4th base hasn't been added on. She is only sitting at 66 workers, but has the Roach upgrades coming on through. Still, I mean, you want to see something happen here for Scarlett soon. There's just not a lot going on the Zerg side of the map. The creep spread is getting quite far into the middle of the map, but again, Pride of Alteris is very, very large, so even with that, it's not getting as far as Scarlett would most likely, you know, prefer it to be. But the Tempests are out. Zest. This is very, very interesting. And we've seen players like Classic go for these Tempest openers on 3 bases but he usually does 2 Stargates. And that is meant to try and actually cancel the Zerg 4th and sometimes push down the 3rd with Tectonic Destabilizers. This is a bit different. This is a little bit of a variation on that. But both these players just sitting back perfectly fine to be passive. And both of them extremely confident right now in their macros. The 4th base will finally start to go down here for Scarlett. Has a good amount of Roaches out to defend on the ground and is getting on into the Spire. Zest, though, 3 Void Rays at a time now are going to be used to protect the Tempests. The Tempests, they're really powerful. They hit like trucks. They also are about as strong as a piece of paper. If anything gets on top of Tempest, they melt so quickly. As here we go, Zest is going to try and siege up this base, but the Queen's already being moved into position. And Scarlett, she's going across the map. You see the Revelation there down onto the Queens, but look at how much damage those Tempests put on out. But it's Roaches and Ravagers across the map. Shield Battery Overcharge was already popped here by Zest, but has the Void Rays at the base to defend. The Queens are now here, though. Where are the Tempests? They're still across the map. You can see them blinking there. On the bottom side, they're going to actually just go for the base. They're not even going to try and defend. I don't think Zest has enough to defend at home here. Even if he tries, that's 1 cannon already going down, and there are plenty of shield batteries at home. The gold base will go down for Scarlett, and Zest, I think he's just going to try and make that trade and get on out. More Void Rays in production. I wouldn't even mind, you know, Zest, I mean, look how many minerals he has. If he just had a few more gateways, could just pump out Zealots to try and tank a bit of this damage, but as it is, that 3rd base has to be evacuated. And Zesty just going straight on up to the 4th of Scarlett. Wants to try and take this down. Tectonic Destabilizers does so much damage, and it's a base race here in game number 1. But Scarlett has so much. There's just so much forward. The recall has to be used on the Tempest, but it's on the 3rd base. They're not going to be in range of the shield batteries. They're going to have to pull on back. And Scarlett's already in the natural. She's already pushing through. The corrosive biles are going down. Even with the great focus fire here from Zest, he didn't manage to get that 4th base. Scarlett is still sitting on 3 bases right now, or 3 hatcheries, perfectly fine. And Zest, he's running out of gas. Right now, it's so little gas. These last 3 Void Rays are going to really be it. And, I mean, Zest, he has enough Tempest, though. He might be able to finally start to clean up the Queens. Transfusers are trying to go out, but now there are Corruptors. The additional Void Rays aren't out just yet. But Zest's going to try and push this back. So close. Needs these additional Void Rays to come on through, but the Corruptors are diving on in. They're going to be able to shoot down the Void Rays. Zest's supply is dropping. Scarlett's supply is dropping. Such an intense game number 1, but it feels like maybe Zest just might have enough. So many probes go down, though. 32 fall. Scarlett's reestablishing a 4th. She is going to have a transition out of this, and Zest, this is all that he has to try and hold on. I think that might spell enough doom here for our Protoss player. Scarlett, incredibly handled game number 1. And despite the last few Queens going down, look across the map. 70 supply to 100. More queens in production, more lings. The fourth base being reestablished. That gold's going to start mining again. And Zest's economy is crippled. He's sitting at 30 workers. I mean, for Zest, I don't even know what the call is. Maybe you just have to try and head across the map and hope that that's enough. But even then, I really don't like it. Scarlett, 7 more corruptors on the way, more queens in production. I mean, Zest has +1. That's gonna help, but Spore's in position. These Tempests, they just need to siege away slowly but surely. And Zest, he's gonna try and make his last hurrah. There's counterattack across the map. A few lings trying to make their way on into that natural base to further cripple Zest. You do have a few corruptors going down, but the Tempests, they're a bit too far forward. Corruptor's gonna dive on forward, immediately prismatic alignment onto the Void Rays. And Zest, he's doing some good damage, but again, more Spore Crawlers coming through. Still have queens, 6 more corruptors on the way, and Zest, he's not replenishing his army behind this. There's no real reinforcements coming across the map. More corruptors come out for Scarlett. And that should be a close on game number 1 as they dive on forward. They focus down the Tempests. Everything is going to fall for Zest, as well as his supply down to sub 60. GG. Scarlett takes game number 1. Game 1, Pride of Alteris does go the way of Scarlett. A very, very potent timing attack there. And it really felt like both players made some really good calls in that last game. You know, looking at the situation, Scarlett, of course, immediately decides, hey, listen, I'm going to go for this attack. I know you have Tempest out. I'm still going to continue with it. She doesn't pull back because of the Tempest. She doesn't get baited into trying to defend that third base. And that was absolutely the right call because Zest needed time to get up to a healthy Void Ray count, and she did not give him that. With the queens moving across the map with the roaches, busts down the third, even gets into the natural and gets the and starts to get the probe kills. But on the same side, you can't say Zest really made all too many mistakes there. I think the counterattack, you know, killing the gold base with the Tempest was good. I think maybe Zest needed to pull back the Tempest sooner, but had he been able to get the kill on the fourth, that would have been enough damage that he would have been in a better situation towards the end of that game. It wouldn't have been great. It still would have been not the best, but it would have been just slightly better. So that was a really, really awesome game 1, just in how the builders interacted and how the players made their decisions, both of them. Really, really well done. Of course, Scarlett was able to take it in the end. And for Scarlett, you know, again, just more wins on top of her already impressive run. It's so cool to see her playing so well, especially. You know, it's been a while for Scarlett since she has, I think, really performed to this level in an international tournament. So a lot of Scarlett fans, of course, are very, very happy with this performance from her. But we're on to Hardwire. And Hardwire's a bit of a stranger map. Definitely not a strange, you know, map in comparison to what we've seen before. But especially for Zest 2 Stargate style, I'm interested to see how it works out. Because, again, this is a map that has a lot of attack paths. There is a safer low ground third, of course, you know, that's directly below the main bases. And that's usually the one that the Protoss is probably going to want to take. But we'll see. It's actually not even going to be a Stargate. Zest is opening a robotics facility first? What world are we in? This isn't Zest. This isn't Zest. This is parting right here. Zest doesn't do this. Okay, let's see it. Already, robotics facility in Twilight Council. Okay. And this is a very old school kind of build here from Zest. Again, Stargate has been the flavor of Protoss for the past, I mean, half a year. But before that, this was the opener. You would either go for an Archon drop with, of course, DTs as your first wave, and then follow that up into a double morph for Archons that you would then try and drop across the map and go into a ground army, or light glaive adept pressure was one that Zest was particularly fond of. But this is an Archon drop. I have not seen an Archon drop, or at least the DT opener, most likely into an Archon drop in, I think, a year. This is just a build that you don't see Protosses do anymore because Zerg's got so good at defending it and knowing how to counterattack. And you see Scarlett here is going to be able to see the Warp Prism, so she knows this is a robotics facility first. And, I mean, Scarlett's probably really glad because she already has a Roach Warren on the way. I'm very interested to see how this ends up panning out, though, but again, the reason why the Archon drop started to fade out of popularity is Zergs just started opening with a Roach Warren. Even if they didn't end up using it, they got a Roach Warren. They'd be able to use it to defend against the Archons, and then usually there wasn't enough money for the Protoss alongside a third base to really defend with Immortals. And Zest was really the one player who got very good at defending, you know, using shield batteries and cannons with a few Immortals with some Stalkers to defend. But even then, it was so hard with the Archon drop to get across the map and to, you know, do enough damage, and then also to be able to defend on the other side against the Roach Swell, that it did just kind of fade from popularity. Now we are going to see the DTs warped in 4 at a time. I imagine Zest is going to try and go in with them first. As you see, 2 are going to go in towards the main, 1 towards the natural, and 1 towards the third. Scarlett, though, already has Spore Crawlers in position. This is such a great read from Scarlett. Knows exactly what's going, but does not have a Spore in the main, and this is where it can start to get dangerous. You already have the third base taking some fire, as the Dark Templar there did make his way in, and with no queens to defend, immediately a drone pull from the main. Scarlett not even going to risk it. Overseer morphed, and Zest just going to split his focus fire here onto both the Roach Warren and the Lair, but should not have enough time to really do a significant amount of damage to either of them. So far, 6 workers killed. Zest gonna pull on out behind this. Look at that bank for Zest. 1k minerals, and there is no, I mean, there's no third base for Zest. Isn't producing Immortals, and this is where it gets boring. Again, Scarlett has defended this with only queens and lings. She hasn't actually even had to produce roaches. So she is working still on a 58 drone economy. This Archon drop needs to get a lot of damage here for Zest, and here we go on in towards the main. You see how quickly these queens just go down, and one of them is already getting sniped. The Overseer also goes down. It's just lings out for Scarlett. She did not build roaches. I don't think she was expecting this follow-up. But now 9 roaches on the way. A few of them are going to pop out right now, but already drones going down. Again, queens getting focused. And Zest, this is getting some serious damage done already. That's 4 queens dead. 4 drones go down. Oh, and the drones trying to hide behind this mineral line should be able to at least protect themselves. The Archon's a bit too beefy. A bit too beefy to fit back there. 1 is going to find its way forward. Gets a drone. Zest picks it up, gets on out. Has Immortals being produced behind this. Additional gateways on the way. More Dark Templar are going to be headed across the map now. Again, no Overseer. That did get sniped. And actually, oh, are all the queens dead for Scarlett? She has no queens. Zest is getting so much damage done here now. As the Dark Templar makes its way into the third base, it's going to get even more drone kills. 8 go down. And the Archons into the back of the natural. 9 drones in total. This is starting to get out of hand here for Scarlett. I mean, so far, already lost 19 drones. And that is just an incredible amount that you really can't afford at this point in the game. The Archons are just still alive, poking around the back of the base. Zest doing a great job of keeping them alive. Has charge, has +1, and Zest has been able to buy enough time that he can transition, and this is the danger of the Archon drop. And I think it's just been so long that Scarlett wasn't expecting it, but she had a good amount of queens for the DTs, didn't have enough queens for the follow-up. Didn't have roaches out in time for the follow-up, and that means that has been stuck in her base trying to defend this. Now you see Scarlett immediately 11 roaches on the production tab, and you have to imagine this is going to be either for Scarlett gearing up to try and move across the map because she has no 4th, but it actually might even end up just being for a defense, and this is a bit of an anti-timing here for Zest, who is, again, more warp-ins, moving in at the front, has DTs queued up there for a backstab. But a bit of an anti-timing. Scarlett has +1 coming through. It's not done yet, though, but has a large amount of roaches that are already out, moving straight on into the natural. Zest is going to completely bypass the army, as already, you know, finally, though, you have the Ravagers being morphed on in. Force fields going down to try and section out this army. You have 3 Immortals with this push. They're going to absolutely chunk through, but whoa, the Corrosive Biles kill 1 immediately. 1 so low, it finally goes down. Scarlett with the surround should be able to get rid of this army, but 16 drones go down. And sure, Zest's army gets cleaned up, but does critical damage here to Scarlett, who's lost 36 drones this game. 36. Ooh, recall, is that enough? Oh! 1 HP. Calculated by Zest. But it's 10 more roaches. Scarlett, she's going for the all-in. She knows that she's taking too much damage. She needs to try and end the game here. I don't see it happening. I mean, looking at the units, I mean, actually, it's only an Immortal for Zest. It's an Immortal and an Archon, but it's 16 Zealots. I don't know if it's quite enough here for Scarlett, as Zest is going to be able to cut off the reinforcements. He's not gonna let them come across the map. The Zealots are just trying to stop these Queens and Roaches from making their way. And now the warping of additional Zealots. He's also gonna get these few Ravagers that were left behind by Scarlett. Zest has the economy behind this. He's sitting at 59 workers and 3 bases. But still the army, Scarlett, this all in, it's gonna continue. She's not building any drones behind this. Zest needs to be so careful. This is still a dangerous, dangerous scenario for her, or for Zest. As well as for Scarlett. I mean, this is it. You need to make this work. The warping. You're gonna stop the Roaches from making their way into the natural, and Zest. He's not even facing the army. This is so well played by Zest. He's trying to bait Scarlett into stopping her all in. He knows that all of her units are across the map. He says, all right, well, I'm just gonna counterattack you. Do you go for it? I have more money than you, and I can build up a stronger army over time. And this is the bluff that Zest is calling right now. Scarlett, she's across the map. She's immediately on into the main base, but she's the one that's losing workers first. A Zealot run by into the third. The Immortal gonna be able to at least get a few more kills before it goes down, but it's continued warpins across the map by Zest, and his army supply is rapidly growing. Past that is Scarlett's. GG. Zest takes game number 2. But we're into game number 3. And old school for Zest, and I love seeing it. I mean, Zest was one of the players who was just impeccable with the Archon drop back in the day, but it's a build that requires so much micro. And even though it ended up working out for Zest, there was a few sketchy moments again where he was floating a lot of minerals, where he didn't quite have his transitions as quick as you would like. And so there might have been an opportunity for Scarlett, but he was able to keep her back at home because she hadn't committed to the all-in. Scarlett was still hoping that she could hold on, not take too much damage, and transition it out, but eventually it just started to snowball way too hard, and Scarlett had to just call it and move across the map. And that's exactly what Zest wanted. Played it perfectly on into his hands. And of course, also the anti-timing that did come out was very, very dangerous. But even then, still felt like, you know, Zest, at that point, had everything kind of in his hands. Wasn't really worried about too much because he knew how the game was going to play out. And we'll see. I mean, I like the robo play from Zest. Again, I really like mixing it up here. In best of 5s especially, you can't go for the same build every single game in Zest, showing that he's willing to mix in, you know, a bit of something different. And especially something that we just haven't seen in a while. And it makes me very, very excited for the rest of this series for what we might see. Especially if Zest decides to go for something maybe a bit more cheesy, maybe a bit more aggressive, as we do have Warpgate immediately being researched and then canceled. So it is going to be the Stargate. Zest. Maybe I wouldn't call that indecision. Probably just thought he had more gas than he did and misplaced the Stargate at first. But he's going to be going back to the Stargate play as he did in game number 1. As I said, that game number 1 was extremely close, so I don't even mind Zest continuing to go for the Stargate opener. Even if we're going 2 to 3 Stargates, I think that he looked very, very solid. It was just the decision-making in that game was just barely favored towards, you know, Scarlett. Scarlett was able to call it, and that's one of Scarlett's strengths, really, as a player, is Scarlett. She will go for an attack, she will go for a build, and she'll say, all right, this is what I'm doing. And she will commit to it. And that decisiveness is, you know, what really does make these games close and even get her the wins. And it's very exciting to see. Now, we do have an Oracle first here on Berlingrad, which is a bit of a stylistic choice. I think usually with the Oracle first, it does tend to mean that perhaps Zest isn't going to be leaning as heavily on into the Void Rays. But we will see, because Berlingrad, it is one of the shorter maps in the map pool. A lot of debris at the center to try and slow down pushes, but it really, there is just a straight shot third to third in on this map, as you see right there in the middle. But we'll see how much this Oracle can get done. Now, it is out a bit early than it usually is, because most players are going for the Void Ray first, as immediately a Larva going to be focused down. And I like that little pick off from Zest here. He's going to go on in. Already 2-3 drones go down. Gets on out with the Oracle. Takes a lot of hull damage, but still finding those worker kills this early in the game. Really anything Zest will take. And yeah, it is going to be 3 additional gateways. So Zest here, again, mixing it up. He's not going for double Stargate. He's not going to be committing on into the Void Ray tech. Instead, just gets out a second Oracle, adding on more gateways now. And we'll see, I imagine we'll see the Twilight Council placed down relatively soon here. As it has not come down just yet. Zest has quite a bit of gas, but hasn't put down a Robo or a Twilight Council. And no, it is a second start and a Fleet Beacon. Okay, never mind. My read was completely off. Zest says, listen, I know I'm going up to 4 gateways, but come on. Come on. I gotta go for the double Stargate. And is going to be transitioning on into it. Was waiting for the gas for the Fleet Beacon. But does have a very large Adept coming across the map. And, I mean, this might, honestly, with how last game went, Scarlett might think that this is a gateway build from Zest. She might think that this is going to be a Twilight Council. There's going to be a Robo. And this might be Glaive Adepts as a follow-up. But that's not, in fact, what it's going to be. It's additional Stargates. It's a Fleet Beacon. Zest is going back on into the Air Army. And he's trying to play these mind games, and I absolutely love it. Has, of course, the 2 Oracles still sticking around with the army. And it's Tempests. It's Tempests again. Zest running back game 1. 1 less Stargate. Is not going for the 3. Because, of course, he did commit to a bit more of a ground army this game. And Scarlett's just going for the Queen Walk. This is the Queen Walk that Raynor has done many, many times, where it's Queens and Lings very, very early on in the game with a few Roaches as a backup, but a lot faster than the usual Queen Walk. And with, you know, of course, a few less Queens, but it's meant to try and hit this attack, or try and hit the Protons before their air units are really in a large enough number to defend properly. Zest gonna immediately go for the recall on the Adepts. Did move them across the map. Has pulled back actually quite a few Lings because of that, but now has the Tempests on out. Those Adepts sitting on at the natural. You see the Oracles across the map trying to see if they can get any damage done, but it is just all on these Tempests, poking away that supercharged battery, surviving for so long. Scarlett not able to focus down. Finally, the Lings are now back across the map. The 3rd base should go down. The Lings are focusing it, but it's still the Tempest. I mean, look how many Queens are dying. I don't think Scarlett can push this in. The Tempests are still alive. There's going to be 2 more coming out. Stalkers are being warped on in. You have a cannon and 3 shield batteries, and the Adepts are going for their counterattack again. Now that the Lings are committed across the map, Zest says it's time to try and go for that counter. They're on into the 3rd. They're going to start getting drone kills. And back at home, the shield batteries are finished. The Stalkers trying their best to hold. They have so many hit points. The Oracle's coming back now. The Queens are all going to die. Now it's just Roaches and Lings, but Scarlett, her economy is gutted first. She's lost 16 drones. Zest should be able to hold on here in game number 3. And in behind this has gutted Scarlett. GG Zest. Gonna take a 2-1 lead. And we are on to 2,000 atmospheres, the map that you will see in almost every single best of 3 and best of 5, because everybody loves 2,000 atmospheres, or at least it is the map that everyone is the most familiar with in the new map pool, as in the bottom left-hand corner. It's Zest. And in the top right, it is Scarlett. Of course, playing for Shopify Rebellion. And oh my, that last game. That last game was so cool. It was so cool. I mean, the decision making from Zest there. Tries to go for the counterattack with the Adepts. Realizes that that's not going to work. The Lings have been pulled back, so recalls. Uses the Adepts to defend a little bit, but has Tempest out to poke down the Queens. And then as soon as the Lings are committed to killing his 3rd, he just sends the Adepts back across. Zest then gets the counterattack damage because Scarlett is fully committed to trying to kill Zest. The Tempests are still alive by the end, though, and that was just, again, these 2 players are, the decision making has been beautiful this series between the both of them, and it's usually only been coming down to 1 or 2 mistakes in like the climax of the game. It's 1 or 2 decisions that are being made that are really making the difference, and that's absolutely awesome to see in games of this level. But now Zest is on to match point, of course. Sorry, that is a best of 5. I'm sorry if I've been putting that as to a best of 3 for the whole time, but it is in fact a best of 5. So Zest is on to match point. Ready to go. And we'll see what build he goes for. Again, I really did like that he went for the Archon drop, but that's probably a one-off. I don't think Zest is going to go for that build again, just because if Scarlett sees if Scarlett sees the Warp Prism being used to poke down her Overlord, she immediately knows that it's an Archon drop, and this time can respond correctly. But I wouldn't mind, again, to see it just mixed up a little bit, as we do have like, some cute little drone harass there. Some worker line harass with the minerals. Of course, you're not going to actually slow down the Zerg an incredible amount, but what you're just trying to do is Zest, you're trying to disrupt that mining. If you get the worker to actually go off, because there's a worker already mining the mineral patch, the worker will redirect to another mineral patch, and then that messes up the rest of Scarlett's mining. And so it does just slow down the Zerg. And everything that Protoss does really in the early game is meant to slow down the Zerg. That's why you go for the Pro block on the natural, is so that the Zerg is just, again, slowed down. It's a longer time for the drones to come from the main all the way down to that third base location. And it is going to be a Stargate once again for Zest. Is it Tempests? No, it's going to be a Void Ray opening. So, I mean, still potentially it could be Tempest. Again, Zest has shown complete willingness to kind of start to look like one build and then completely change it around. So, we'll see. Again, this could be a game where he does just go for a ground army off this Stargate opener, which I think would be, again, another interesting variation on what he's been doing. But with that being said, 2,000 atmospheres, it is a map that's quite large. It's one of the largest maps, if not, I think, the largest in the map pool. And so it is very safe to go for these double Stargate builds, just because it takes such a long time for the queens to come across the map if the Zerg wants to go for that queen walk. It takes quite a while. And so as much as I would like to see Zest switch it up a little more, I do think this is most likely going to be, again, a very similar opening, third base coming down, and then a second Stargate soon to follow. And we'll just see what Zest actually ends up doing with it. Because of course, we did see the Tempest build. We've seen that twice, and the first time didn't work. Second time did work very, very well. Of course, it was in a bit of a more scrappy game. But we'll see. Zest might run it back for a third time. Zest is the type of player that he definitely doesn't shy away from doing the same build over and over again. That's kind of what made him that's kind of what he made his name on. Excuse me. Is finding one build that was very, very good, refining it to a perfection, and then just constantly using it. But we did have the Oracle poke on in. Did manage to find itself 3 drone kills, and it is, of course, the second Stargate for Zest, with that third base coming up very, very quickly. No +1, though. Usually that +1 should be starting right around the time that the second Stargate finishes up, if it is, in fact, going to be, you know, a massive committal to this air army, which, I mean, it's Zest. It should be. Zest is very comfortable just going for Void Rays into carriers on 3 bases. It's something that he really doesn't mind doing. So, looking for that +1 to most likely start up fairly soon for him. But it is going to be the Forge, of course, for the cannons, and you have the Roach Warren for Scarlett, who up to this point, aside from those 3 drone kills, has been mostly undisturbed and is already going to be getting up a third. So, she's not going to be committing super hard to any really early queen walk. Of course, you can still go for about the 8-minute one with this build, where you do get the +1 for the roaches and the queens, and then move them across the map on 4 bases. Of course, without the 4th being saturated. But that is, a decision for Scarlett to make. She might be comfortable on 2,000 atmospheres taking this to the late game. That is a possibility, for sure. Again, it's a large map. It's a map that all these players are comfortable with. So she might not have a problem with that, and we'll have to see, as you do have that +1 air weapons started up for Zest, and it is going to be legal reconstitution and the +1 ranged attacks for the Zerg. And so far, it is just about as standard as you can get with these openings from both these players. And yep, there we go. Third Stargate, Fleet Beacon being added on. So Zest, I would imagine, is going to be transitioning on into the carriers, as the attempted run by is going to be denied by that adept in the wall. Ooh, the stasis trap, getting some decent value there. Zest has actually gotten some very good stasis traps in both game 1 and this game. And I love seeing that spell being utilized, especially when you know that you can't poke in with your Pulsar. You know, just using the fact that the stasis ward can oftentimes disable drones for such a long time, and you might actually get more value out of it than if you tried to go in and snipe down the drones with your attack. I really like Zest utilizing it, as we do have the third Stargate finished, we have the fleet beacon finished, and it's of course immediately a Spire here from Scarlett, who knows at this point, has seen the Void Rays, that this is in fact an air army here from Zest, but actually it is Flux Veins. 3 Void Rays at a time and Flux Veins, so it's not going to be carriers just yet here from Zest. Wants the speed Void Rays. Of course, Flux Veins giving a massive speed boost to those Void Rays. Oh, Oracle does go down, and that's actually pretty big. Again, that Oracle, lots of utility for the Protoss. That's your main tool for scouting, keeping tabs on what the Zerg is building and where their army is, so that going down. Pretty massive here. Zest going to be in the dark, and you immediately see those Void Rays being pulled on back. But it's going to be continued. 3 Void Ray production. Scarlett's going to get a complete idea of what's going on. Of course, you can see what's building inside of those Stargates. Knows that this is going to be a lot of Void Rays as the flock descends on that single Overseer. Already at 11 Void Rays. There's 13 Queens out on the map. Of course, you do have this, the Spire finish, but instead it's going to be Ventral Sacs. Or Pathogen Glands. Sorry, Ventral Sacs is the Overlord upgrade, but Pathogen Glands, which of course will mean that your Infestors do pop out with more energy. Enough for a fungal right off the bat. As the Void Ray is going to be poking on in, you do have a Depth Stalkers and a few Sentries with this attack, and it's a bit of an off timing here for Zest, but pushing on in. So many Void Rays live, but the Transfuses coming on out. The Void Rays trying to focus on down. The Queen's fighting just out of range of that Spore Crawler. But I don't know if this was the call for Zest. This is such a greedy attack to go for, and Scarlett, she was just hitting her macro strides, already sitting at 175 supply. Zest, that was very aggressive. I don't think it was worth it. 6 Queens for 6 Void Rays, also lost the Sentries. You see Zest actually leading in that resources lost. But now +2 has started up. Vipers and Infestors on the way. The Void Rays still, of course, trying to poke around. They have the speed. They have the maneuverability to be able to outposition these Queens. But, I mean, I don't know. Zest lost a lot in that attack. Didn't gain much of anything. Scarlett has a 5th base established. Is, of course, getting the Vespene geysers there. You do have carriers on the way for Zest. But Scarlett's in such a good spot right now. I mean, she's sitting at 87 workers. Of course, Zest has 82. But the army for Scarlett, she's gotten, you know, she has her Roach Ravager ball that will be used to try and tank and defend quite nicely. But she's already gotten up into Infestors, even snipes a Void Ray there with the fungal growth. But you can just see these Roaches, they can start looking for counterattacks. And what really is there for Scarlett to defend? I mean, this Warp Prism is actually such a beautiful mind games. The Warp Prism had nothing in it, but still manages to force away the Roaches. Of course, Scarlett doesn't want to lose this army because she's still looking to rebuild. And the big thing about Roach Ravager is you look to trade out with it. Right now for Scarlett, you don't want to stay on Roach Ravager as the meat of your army as this game goes on, but you can use it to try and trade away buildings, try and get worker kills, and pick off key units and tech structures for the Protoss, and then transition those units into Corruptors, into Infestors and Vipers, and eventually Broodlords is what it looks like is going to be the pathway here for Scarlett, who does have a Greater Spire finished. But Broodlords, I mean, not the best, though, against Airtoss. Again, Carriers and Void Rays do very, very well against Broodlords and Corruptors until the Zerg gets enough numbers. But right now, Scarlett's working with one hell of a bank. Doesn't have, I think, as much gas as she'd like as... Oh, Zest, oh no, that's massive. Oh, that's horrible for Zest. Again, losing anything here for Zest is not what you want. He's already thrown, you know, already with that attack, lost 6 Void Rays, losing 3 more there. And is also going to drop, or is also going to get this. I believe this is his 5th base denied. Has another 5th already reestablishing down at the 6 o'clock position. But still, any losses here for Zest are bad because Scarlett, again, hasn't lost a lot. Scarlett's very, very comfortable in this game. And so, you know, losing 11 Void Rays, if Zest had those 11 Void Rays, it would be such a buffer against the Corruptors. Right now, I mean, he'd be sitting at 14. 14 Void Rays is a massive difference to 3 and 6 carriers. And sure, it would take up a lot of supply for him, but it would be much more efficient here in trading as you now have Infestors, Roaches, and Ravagers pushing across the map for Scarlett. Carriers are here, and they should be able to push this back. She's gonna pull off as the carriers are shown. And now Zest, I mean, sitting almost maxed out again, though. It is just a straight carrier army. Has that mothership in production. Does not have it out yet, though. And that's, I mean, the mothership is such a massive part of this army. It's able to do so much work as the Zealot counterattack here at the bottom side. Should be cleaned up as the Banelings roll on through. And the Zealots now enough Ling, Bane, and Roaches to clean that up. Zest, though, 182 supply. Right now, I mean, sitting at, what, 8 carriers and, oh, 1 Void Ray. It's just 8 carriers here for Zest. I don't know if this push is the right idea for Zest. He's only at 178 supply. I mean, you're establishing a base behind this, Zest. I do not like this push. I feel like this is B4+2. This is as Scarlett finishes up her upgrades and gets a wave of 13 Corruptors. Zest is, I mean, he's hitting a massive anti-timing here. But we'll see if he can make it work. I mean, hey, has the Archons below the carriers. They should be able to at least try and get some work done. Also has the charge lock, but Scarlett, she's going on in. Where's the fungal growth? There it is on all the carriers. Corruptors diving on in, focus firing, getting the carriers though, now splitting their attention because they know they have enough. And Zest supply just drops. Scarlett completely demolishes the attack. The Void Rays are dead, the carriers are dead. Scarlett has a remax with 12 Roaches, 9 more Corruptors. And Zest tries to warp in Zealots here to strike down perhaps the 5th, but that should just be cleaned up. And that attack was not it for Zest. Again, it was an anti-timing. His +2 finished up right as the attack ended, right as it was all cleaned up. That's just, oh, it's just such a, it's just so bad for Zest. I mean, his mothership is on the map now. But again, it wasn't finished for the fight. He's gonna lose this 5th base. Back down to 4 bases for Zest. He's not mining a lot of gas. I mean, the remax on air units is not gonna be there for Zest. He needs to go for ground units, and he has Archons, has a few charge slots. Should be able to, I mean, potentially maybe defend from this Corruptor Swarm. But Scarlett right now, I mean, she's up 60 supply. And Scarlett can absolutely just dive on in. Gotta snipe down the mothership. There we go. -400, -400. Did absolutely nothing for Zest. Another base should go down here. But, I mean, Stalkers, Archons being brought in. Banelings, though, should be able to roll on in. A few of them getting good connections, and then Scarlett just rolls on past, trying to look for the mineral line, and that might just be the call because look at how many probes are going down. 16, 19 end up falling. Scarlett pulls back the Corruptors, but she's killed most of the air. The Void Rays are gone, and it's 11 Broodlords on the remax. Scarlett, absolutely beautiful play here in game number 4. Trying to force the ace, and she should be able to do so. There is nothing left here for Zest. He's trying to get +2 ground attacks, but he's working with, I mean, charge lots that are just countered by the Ling Roach. Scarlett has better upgrades. She has Broodlords coming on in. Scarlett's gonna bring us to a game 5, and it was in a macro game, 15 minutes long, and she has managed to dismantle Zest. As he is down 100 supply, she's gonna push this to the win. The Broodlords are here! And there we go, GG's called. Scarlett ties us up. And we're on to Blackburn, which seems to be the map that always makes it through the map pick and bans, but it's never a first pick for anybody. And so it always feels like you actually end up seeing Blackburn as the decider map. I can't tell you how many series I have casted where Blackburn ends up being, game 5 or game 7. It always ends up being Blackburn, on these really, really important games. I don't know what it is about the map, but it always leads to great, great games. And I'm very, very excited we're in game 5. This is what you want from the quarterfinals. You want a game 5, and we're here. And really it is all down to just how, wonderfully Scarlett has been playing. And of course, Zest hasn't been playing bad. Zest has been playing very well. But the amount that Scarlett has stepped up and her form, and how much better her form looks compared to how it's been for the past, 2 years is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And Scarlett has stated in interviews that her TVP right now feels pretty good. And you can obviously see that. Brings Zest, of course, to a game 5. Oh, man. Just take a deep breath, everybody. Just take a deep breath. Savor it. Savor the moment. As here we are. And we'll see what Zest tries to do. On Blackburn, of course, this is a very, very safe map for Protoss to take your first 3 bases. However, the Zerg, if they're allowed to do what they want, can, of course, take the gold base as, I mean, it could be their natural, but usually ends up being their 4th or their 3rd, depending on how greedy the Zerg wants to be. And so playing 2 passive does mean that the Zerg can just build a very, very strong army and march it across the map. So, of course, as the Protoss, you don't want to be too passive with your opener. So we'll see what Zest decides to do, because right now, again, you are going to be having that Stargate opener. As I kind of said, you're not going to run back the Archon drops. Scarlett knows that that's a possibility, and if you actually end up doing it, she'll be able to respond, I mean, as again, perfectly, because it's a build that's been worked out so much. It was so prevalent in the meta for so long that Zergs have kind of all know the perfect way to respond to it. And so that's a build that you can only do once. But we'll see what variation of the Sky Toss this is going to be for Zest. You know, is it going to be the Oracle? Is it going to be the Tempest again? And I wouldn't actually be mad to see the Tempest, because I think the Tempest play from Zest was really good. Even in game 1 where he lost, I think he made the right calls with it, and it did an amazing amount of damage. Of course, it just was that Scarlett in that game, her decision-making was too good, and her decisiveness especially was just too good, and she was able to make the right calls to try and close it out. But we'll see. Amelia, of course, going to be having that Oracle following up the Void Ray to be going across the map, trying to get some harassment, mostly to get vision and knowledge of what the Protoss is, or what the Zerg is doing. But Scarlett should be fairly safe from it. Again, has had to take that 3rd base as her natural. Has her 3rd coming up just down the ramp from her main fairly shortly. But should be fine against this Oracle. Again, I think Zest, the most he's gotten with the Oracle was about 4 kills. Other than that, it's usually been kept to 3 or below. But this is going to be a little bit interesting. We are actually going to be seeing the Void Ray pushing alongside the Oracle to try and clear up some Overlords. So double prong pressure here, or 2 unit pressure here from Zest, who immediately gets the Queens to focus fire on to the Void Ray and then goes in with the Oracle. Already going to be able to get 3 drone kills, but you have a Spore Crawler up to this natural, so it's a bit too dangerous to push on in there. Oh, that Oracle gets very low. Zest unable to try and dive in to get that 4th drone kill. If he did, would have risked taking too much damage and the Oracle just dying right there. But it is, in fact, the 2nd Stargate for Zest once again, so it will be this air toss with the +1 air weapons. And you have the 4th base being taken at the gold, of course, for Scarlett with the Roach Warren. So all is standard. There's nothing crazy going on in this game just yet. We will see if Zest mixes it up, but of course, you know, with Zest, even if he built 4 Stargates, I wouldn't be surprised, because it's Zest. And Zest would do something like that. But we shall see. As the Void Ray and the Adept going to push across the map, you are going to be having the Stasis Ward go on down. Should not get too much damage. A single link going to be used to trigger that. Scarlett this time manages to completely mitigate the damage, potentially, from that spell. And again, already I would have to say this is a fairly decent start here for Scarlett. Only lost 3 drones so far. Sitting in a pretty comfortable position, of course, has that gold base that's going to be coming up fairly shortly. You got to feel like as the Zerg, you're pretty happy with this. I don't think there's too many complaints that can be levied for Scarlett, as you do have, of course, the double Stargate production. This time, we're not going to be seeing 3 Stargates. Oh, no, there we go. There's the 3rd Stargate. Never mind. It is 3 Stargate Fleet Beacon. So, Zest is running back. Of course, the game 4 build, the build that he just did, which I find a bit strange. Again, Scarlett showed that she knows how to respond to that build very, very well, and that was the game that really you should have been comfortable in, and Zest was the one that really made the mistakes. But he's gonna run it back, deciding, all right, this is what I'm gonna do, and we might see this be 3 Tempests, and I would almost prefer it to be 3 Tempests, as we do have the Void Rays pushing across the map, but we'll have to see what upgrade comes through in that Fleet Beacon. Is it immediately into carriers? Yes, it is. Okay. Still Zest mixing up a little bit. That's Stasis Ward. Stasis Trap going to get a few drones there. 4. It's a decent number. Just try to slow down as a Zerg, but it's the 3 carriers right off the bat, so Zest still mixing it up. He's gone triple Tempest, he's gone triple Void Ray, he's now going straight on into the carriers, wants to build up that carrier Death Ball. And this is, again, this is where it can get dangerous for the Zerg. Even though you're in a great macro position, 76 workers for Scarlett. If you are not immediately building the counter to the carriers, then you get caught off guard. But Scarlett scouts in, sees the Stargate building. That's absolutely massive. Scarlett has been so good with these Overseers. This entire series, her scouting has actually been incredible. And so, of course, now knows, hey, it's carriers. The carriers are being produced immediately. There's not going to be more Void Rays. It is just carriers. So what is the response? 10 roaches on the way. +1 missile attacks going to be finishing up here. Glial Reconstitution will be finishing soon. It's even more roaches from Scarlett. Her Spire just now about more than halfway done. But it's 3 carriers and then Flux Veins. Zest immediately transferring or transitioning into Flux Veins. I mean, it's interesting. Of course, the Void Rays do have a faster build time, so they're going to be better for the defense because Scarlett, she's pushing across the map. She's at 165 supply, has +1, has roach speed. She wants to make this attack work at 8 minutes, and she has so much to work with right here. Zest, what do you have? You have carriers, you have Void Rays. Isn't it up to defend? I mean, he's still sitting at 140 supply. Zest right now is in a very, very good economic position. He's getting up a 4th base. Zest, don't attack your Nexus. That's the bad idea, but immediately snipes the Queen. Transfuse is not going down fast enough. More Void Rays in production. That +2 is very close to finishing. If Zest can delay until his +2 air attacks finish, that would be massive. Flux Veins, gonna finish up. You're gonna have speed Void Rays. They're gonna be that much more Micro Bull. But look at that +2 air attack for Zest. That's the big upgrade. But all the interceptors are gone. The carriers, their interceptors all got sniped. They need time to rebuild them. And Zest is not going to be given that time. Scarlett's just pushing on in. The carriers right now, they're dead supply. They have absolutely, they're doing nothing for this fight. But weapons, air weapons level 2, going to be finishing up now for Zest. But the 3rd is under siege. The Queens are pushing it down. The transfuses go down, and Scarlett should be able to break through the base. Zest trying to rebuild interceptors. But again, these carriers, as soon as they go down, they're just dead supply. It's 6 supply in the air that's doing absolutely nothing. But now there's level 2. Will it make the difference though? Zest transferred a lot of his probes on over to this new base. Needs to protect it. If he loses this, then that's game. Then Scarlett will have broken him. I feel like Scarlett has so much here. Carriers are getting extraordinarily low. Shield battery though will heat them back up. Void Rays committing on it, aren't able to snipe the Queen. They're gonna keep trying though, but if Void Ray goes down, there's still so many Queens left here. For Scarlett, she's still 17. But the carriers haven't committed their interceptors into an attack just yet. They're almost fully done rebuilding Zest. Now gonna look to push them on out, but now the interceptors have just all gone down. Never mind, they all have died. Zest hasn't been building them up. He's been attacking with the carriers instead. And Scarlett, she's gonna go in. The supply for Zest is dropping. Scarlett, Queens are still alive. The new 3rd is dying. The Void Rays, there might be some left, but they are all going to fall. And even if they don't, Scarlett has done game-ending damage. It's 8 Void Rays, 6 now on the map for Zest. But Corruptor's in production. And Scarlett, I think she's done it. Against perhaps all odds, against what everyone was betting, Scarlett not only made it out of her group, is now looking to take down Zest in game number 5. Zest is trying to reclaim 2 Nexuses at once. I mean, he has so much money. Again, there's no real gateways to produce ground units, so Zest has so many minerals. But he doesn't have gas, and that's the big thing. He needs to rebuild Void Rays to try and counter these Stalkers. He's just not going to have the... He's not going to be able to. And now Zest is pushing across the map with the Void Rays. He's going to pull the Corruptors on back. He's going to be able to snipe the gold base here for Scarlett. What is the Void Ray count? Zest needs to do so much work with these 9 Void Rays, but it's 24 Corruptors. Scarlett, the absolute mad lad, 24 Corruptors, is going to not even a cancel on the gold base that's been building. That was a kill. She should be able to deny these 2 additional bases that Zest trying to build. The Void Rays have been pulled back in time, though, to protect at least 1. But it's still so many Corruptors. It's 100 army supply for Scarlett. She's pushing across the map with 29 Corruptors. She's just gonna look to absolutely nuke the Nexuses here for Zest. And even if Zest comes back, Look at this Corruptor Flock. It's gonna dive on top. There's not much left here for the Korean Protoss. Scarlett diving on in. Scarlett makes the money moves. And Scarlett is going to take a wonderfully played game number 5 and move on to the semifinals. GG!